News Alert. Fallout continues this morning after President Biden's historic decision to drop out of the 2024 race for the White House and endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris after insisting for weeks he was in it to win it.
You got me, man. I'm not going anywhere.
I'm staying in the race. I'll beat Donald Trump.
Are you 100% undoubtedly running for re-election?
1,000%.
President Biden now says he will remain in office to finish his term, and the Trump-Vance campaign says they're ready to face whoever the Democrats nominate to run in Biden's place this November. Hey, July 22nd, you're watching a special 2-hour edition of Fox & Friends. First, I'm Todd Pyro.
And I'm Carly Shimkus. It is now all eyes on Vice President Kamala Harris, who has officially announced her run for the White House. And she is set to speak later today for the very first time since receiving President Biden's endorsement. We have team coverage for you this morning, and we start with Doug Luzader live in Washington with the very latest on the presidential race right now. Hi, Doug.
Good morning. From 1,000% in to 1,000% out. The president will remain in Delaware today. He's still recovering from COVID-19. Biden doesn't have any public events scheduled at this point over the next few days, although we do expect that schedule to begin to fill in. He has teased this possible national address coming up later this week, but in his announcement to drop out. Despite this decision to bow out of the race, Biden will not be leaving the White House early. He does plan on finishing out his full 4-year term. As for Vice President Kamala Harris, she's scheduled to be speaking around 11:30 Eastern this morning at the second annual White House College Champions Day event, they call it. It's going to be her first time in the public eye since all this news broke. And as Democrats begin moving on from Biden, DNC Chair Jamie Harrison said this: "The work that we must do now, while unprecedented, is clear. In the coming days, the party will undertake a transparent and orderly process to move forward as a unified Democratic Party with a candidate who can defeat Donald Trump in November." Adding, this process will be governed by established rules and procedures of the party. Our delegates are prepared to take seriously their responsibility in swiftly delivering a candidate to the American people. Now, about 4,000 or so delegates will be gathering in Chicago next month at the Democratic National Convention. That's awfully close. Most of whom Biden had already won, but they will now be released since he has dropped out. Now, to win the Democratic nomination, a candidate needs to secure 1,986 delegates. As of last night, 531 had already endorsed Harris. And according to the big fundraising group on the left, Act Blue, supporters have already raised more than $55 million, I'm told, in the hours following the VP's campaign launch, making it one of the biggest fundraising days of this election cycle.
Wow.
Todd and Carl.
Yeah, it was just 46.7 million. So the numbers keep on coming in. Democrats are excited. We'll see if it pays off.
Doug Luzader, thank you. The end of President Biden's campaign does
All the details. Hi, Brooke.
Hey, guys. Yeah, the Democratic Party is noticeably divided over whether its members will back Vice President Kamala Harris for president. Former President Obama, for example, issued a statement praising Biden's work in office, but made no mention of Harris. Instead, the Obamas are calling for a, quote, process from which an outstanding nominee emerges. Other big names aren't falling in line either, including former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. The Clintons, on the other hand, say they are, quote, honored to join the president in endorsing Vice President Harris and will do whatever they can to support her. And the Clintons aren't alone. Since Biden's big announcement, 178 Democratic lawmakers have followed suit in endorsing Harris, including Governors Gavin Newsom, Roy Cooper, and Josh Shapiro, and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. But she is not the nominee yet. Meanwhile, Independent Senator Joe Manchin tells us he is considering re-registering as a Democrat to throw his hat in the ring. So lots of developments are expected in the coming days in this extremely fluid situation, and we will bring them all to you. Guys.
Fluid is an understatement. Brooke,
Right.
Thank you. Meantime, former President Trump reacting to his rival's decision to not seek re-election. Trump posting to Truth Social saying in part, quote, Joe Biden was not fit to run for president. We will suffer greatly because of his presidency, but we will remedy the damage he has done very quickly. Trump's new running mate, J.D. Vance, saying, quote, Joe Biden has been the worst president in my lifetime, and Kamala Harris has been right there with him every step of the way. President Trump and I are ready to save America. Whoever is at the top of the Democrat ticket, bring it on. We'll get reaction from Trump campaign National Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt later on this morning.
Looking forward to that. Also looking forward to this. Let's bring in former Assistant Secretary of State for George W. Bush and former Naval Intel Officer Robert Charles, who served in the Reagan and Bush 41 White Houses. Robert, good morning to you. So Joe Biden is receiving a lot of praise right now for doing the right thing and dropping out of the race, but there are also significant challenges when it comes to running a new candidate in the 11th hour. Even the DNC chair's statement essentially said, well, we'll let you know how we handle this when we figure it all out. So what do you think about this decision and what comes next?
Yeah, we've never been here before. That's for sure, Todd and Carly. You know, it's really not about navigating uncharted waters. It's about the fact that the Democratic Party really navigated themselves onto the shoals. They're in big trouble right now. There's going to be chaos, obviously, within the party. All these people endorsing Harris, you have to believe half of them think that they're going to be her pick for vice president. But, you know, probably as early as 2021, the records are now beginning to trickle out and then flood out that there were lots and lots of situations where Biden basically was not up to the task. So, you know, there's an awful lot of trust that has been hemorrhaged here by the Democratic Party. It's hard for me to see how Harris or anyone else quickly rebuilds that trust. You don't trust anything they say. When they say, well, she's going to be the nominee or he's not going to resign, you know, do you really trust it anymore? And that's the bottom line. The Democrats have hemorrhaged trust in just about every category.
To that point, though, Robert, do you think Democrats will still run as the party that's needed to save democracy in light of the fact that they are basically forcing out the candidate that won 14 million primary votes?
This is probably the most undemocratic party in the most undemocratic presidential primary I think you've ever seen. Because what are you looking at? You're looking at a party which said all of our voters pushed for this man. Even our superdelegates were headed that way or committed that way. And now they're going to abandon him and just walk away. It is as anti-democratic as you can get. In fact, it's very possible that they get some kind of a blocked convention or a stymied convention and the DNC picks their own ticket. And that really goes to the heart of it, which is that Americans do not have a lot of time to study, to understand, to vet whoever the Democrats pick up. And Trump and Vance need to understand that this could be a very rocky road ahead. I mean, they've got to keep their eye on the ball. Everybody focused on Biden, and now the shift is to a different candidate. So it's going to be a tough run. It's going to be interesting, but it's going to be tough.
Right. And on that front, very interesting comments coming from Joe Manchin, who said that he's considering re-registering as a Democrat and running in the race in an effort to bring the conversation for Democrats back to the middle. Does somebody like him, who could appeal to working class voters, pose a greater threat to the Trump-Vance ticket than, say, Kamala Harris would?
Well, I don't particularly think that he poses a great threat. I mean, once you've changed your mind once or twice or three times about who you are and what party you're in, I don't know that people really warm to you. But, you know, the bottom line is Harris is not very popular. And even a Harris fill in the blank ticket is not likely to be very popular. So this thing could turn upside down in a short period of time. You know, I honestly think we're in a position now where Americans need to be very vigilant. This really is unprecedented in our democracy. And
for a gang member who had killed San Francisco police officer Isaac Espinoza, but yet she would imprison over 1,500 people on marijuana-related, issues. And so she was appointed the border czar. We saw how that went with millions who came across the border, hundreds who were on the terrorist organization. And I think just to cackle herself, you know, whether it's Joe Biden's gaffes or whether it's Kamala Harris's word salad, I think that you're essentially getting the exact same thing, which is a failed presidency attempt at the Democrats.
Yeah, if she is the nominee, she's going to have to answer a lot of questions on past statements. She does have a long record, and it includes in 2018, she called to eliminate ICE. And as a presidential candidate, she ran on criminal justice reform and holding police accountable. So you have to wonder how those messages play today when there is a push to increase border security and support police.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, she led the defund the police movement. This is a person who actually wanted to start the Minnesota Bail Fund during the 2020 riots, not to try and ensure law and order, but to help those who were burning and setting businesses on fire. And so this is not a person who is, kind of the blue dog Democrat. She actually is one of the most liberal senators, even more so than Bernie Sanders of Vermont. And so I think that if you look at her, kind of approach to actually going after law enforcement officers as opposed to the criminals themselves, as opposed to trying helping secure the border, we're trying to actually get accountability. She's one of those that's actually trying to do the opposite. And so I think that the soft on crime, catch and release, no bail reform is something that she absolutely champions.
Yeah. Congressman, do you think that she would debate Donald Trump? And if so, what will that look like?
Well, I think that she would attempt to debate the president, but at the end of the day, no one's going to go against his record. I mean, whether it's the trade deals with NAFTA to USMCA, whether it's his Remain in Mexico agreement, Title 42, whether it was the China Phase 1 deal where he brought in billions or millions and millions of dollars to the Rust Belt when it comes to our agricultural sector, strengthening our military, holding our adversaries accountable, eliminating terrorists like Baghdadi for the ISIS, as well as for Qasem Soleimani for Iran. So, look, he can run on his actual, a trail of 4 years of success in our economy and otherwise. What is she running on outside of an open border and the world on fire? And so I think a head-to-head race based on the facts, she doesn't be able to hold a candle.
And, Congressman, it's not just the presidential race. A third of Senate seats and all of the House is also up for re-election. So how does all of this impact the down-ballot races?
Well, I think that it works out really well for the Republicans. They have seen the disarray and the dysfunction of the Democrat Party. They have continued to see the division and separation as they try to play the weekend at Bernie's routine, which is now run out. And then you've got
no public events on his schedule today. So we won't be hearing from him today, maybe later this week. Somebody we will be hearing from, though, is Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle. She's going to be having she's going to be testifying before the House Judiciary Committee on the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump's life. What are your expectations for